next available thing to do. So these are things that we want to look at. That these are questions we want to find answers to, and then this session hopes to challenge us and help us critique our minds, and then to ask ourselves really why is research important. What I hope is that by the end of this discussion, it's going to be quite interactive. At some point, I'll be asking us to use the chat box to respond to some questions. So so at some one of the things I want to do, or I hope to achieve, is that we all come together to first of all understand the importance of the researcher in the society, your importance as a researcher, and then hopefully to also get a kind of an advanced perspective as to who we are to be and the role we are supposed to play in the society we have found ourselves. And finally, I also hope that we'll be able to come to an agreement as to who we really are as researchers. So the outline. So we'll be talking about the introduction. Uh, that's what we'll do next now, and then what is research? Who is a researcher? What should the researcher do? Why research? And then, of course, we'll conclude. So we hope to be able to do this within the next 20 minutes, so that there will be room for questions and answers. So these are the first questions. So for this, I want us to just I want us to use the chat box. So how did you get into research, or why are you interested in it? I want us to just look at the screen and use the chat box. I'll be looking into the chats to see what we write. So use the chat section to respond to this. How did you get into research? Like, how did you find your way here? Uh, are you here because you did the masters and then you discovered that after masters, PhD, and then the only place that they can take you easily is, you know, is to be a lecturer? Or is it because there is somebody you knew who helped you to get the lecturing job and that is why you're here? Or is it because this is what you have always wanted right from when you were small? I know people claim that in Nigeria we don't have dreams, and that any we don't have dreams, and so we just make do with what we have, But then I beg to differ. I beg to disagree. So the question is, how did you get into research, or why are you interested in it? So I'm checking the chat box to see what if anybody is writing anything. I want to be sure I'm audible. Am I audible, please? Oh, okay. Thank you very much. I see someone says it is mandatory for career progression. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Good. So I'm currently doing my PhD and think I will get help here. Thank you. Uh, Mine stem from the passion I have to contribute to the body of knowledge. This is beautiful. These are really, really, very beautiful and important responses. I got into research to acquire more knowledge about social phenomenon. That's interesting. That's very, very, very interesting. All right. So let's move to the next one, and it is: are you fulfilled, or do you have hopes of being fulfilled? Looking at the way research is going, the way like someone says, I want to sharpen my research skills. That's great. Yes. So looking at the way things are going, looking at the advancement in the country, how the country is progressing and all, I want to ask, are you fulfilled? Do you think being a researcher would make you fulfilled? So I want you to also respond to this. Are you fulfilled? Are you happy? Or you just want to get by? You just want to get this whole business of doing a PhD over it? You know, as you feel. That's so yeah, thank you. Someone says it reveals the true state of events. Are you fulfilled or have hopes of being fulfilled? doing research? I'm waiting to see what we write. You know, one of the things we want to see, or one of the things we want to be able to achieve, in life, is to be fulfilled. Okay, good, thank you. So I'm saying I'm happy with my progress so far, and it gets higher every day. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Someone says, um, I have hopes of being fulfilled. The reason of being here. Thank you. Uh, I got into research during my PhD program, and it became more interesting because I like writing as a person. Secondly, I like discovering new things, which is possible. Beautiful. Yeah, I'm happy to be in research, and I intend to contribute to national development through my research. This is great. These are great. These are great. So I think the two questions kind of enter into each other. I am hopeful that research enhances my career progression. Thank you. Thank you. So that means that we think that research. So I want to ask this last question, and it is that yes, to contribute to society development. Thank you. So, do you think that research is effective in the Nigerian society? So, if you look at Nigeria, if you're a Nigerian or if you study about Nigeria, or if somebody you study about Africa, do you think research is effective in Nigeria? Let me hear what we have to say about this. Do you think? Okay, thank you. Not yet. Thank you. Let's see responses. Not really. I don't think so, as most research outcomes are hardly used. Thank you. Not quite. Okay. Is there anyone who has a different opinion, a differing opinion? All right. So let's move on. Let's move on. Yeah, not quite. Mostly to the private sector, right? Not effective because most research are not implemented. Not how it's supposed to be yet, but we are getting there. Thank you. All right. Most conclusions of research are not put into effect. Nigeria is a fallow ground that needs to be cultivated so it could be effective. All right. Thank you very much. All right. So let's move on. Let's move on. Hmm. So I pulled this slide out of a previous session we've had here. The session is on YouTube as why research, but actually the correct title for that session is what is research? So, uh, so I put this slide out of the that presentation. It was done by Professor Akoni Akinyemi. Uh, and so this really speaks to what research is, because if you want to find out what research is, you would have to deal with different definitions. And I think this slide kind of captures all the various definitions of research. So the first one says unending and is an unending search for new knowledge or truth. That is one of the main, that is research, that is how it operates. Another one says it's a careful and detailed study into a specific problem, concern, or issue being uh, issue using the scientific method. Another one says it's a systematic and objective investigation conducted to obtain valid facts, draw conclusions, and establish principles regarding an identifiable problem in some field of knowledge. And then another one says it is a creation of new knowledge and or the use of existing knowledge in a new and creative way so as to generate new concepts, methodologies, and understandings. So all this kind of come together, to tell us a bit about what research is. you know, um, it's an unending search. There is nobody that is the doyen of knowledge and then the sage who knows it all. Nah, even the people who are the doyen of knowledge will tell you that knowledge is inexhaustible. So no human can claim to have known it all. And then truth, we keep searching for what is truth. There's a school of thought that says truth is subjective, and it depends on the angle from which you're looking at things from. So you may not be able to so you may not be able to say, oh, I'm holding on to a position and that position is sacrosanct. So truth is subjective, and truth is very, very, it's a wide concept that doesn't have a particular, that can be argued, from different angles. So, and of course, the rest of the definitions are quite descriptive. But then after looking into what is research, the reason I brought this slide out is because I wanted to translate this into who a researcher is. So, who is a researcher? So, number one, a researcher is an observer and thinker. A researcher is an observer and thinker. So, before you say you do research, one of the skills you must have very well is the ability to observe your environment, observe what is happening around you, observe patterns, and then to think through and think deeply. So deep thinking is an important part, of being a researcher. Observing, noticing things around you. I did a course on creative writing some years back with the University of East Anglia in the UK. And then in one of the sessions, one of the things they taught us was that if you want to be a great writer, you just go out, into maybe to a diner, pick your pen and paper, look at people around you, and try to describe them as detailed as possible in your jotter, your writing pad. So one of the things that taught me was that you can't survive, you can't succeed if you can't succeed very well as a writer, as a scholar, if you don't have that observational skill. So for writing, you want to observe people. What are they doing? How are they doing it? How is what they are doing affecting others? What are other people saying, or how do other people perceive what they are doing? Those questions are things you want to think of as a writer. But then as a researcher also, you want to look around you and say, oh, what is happening? How is this thing happening? Who is facilitating this thing? Who are the actors making this thing? And then you're also thinking, okay, so why is it happening this way? Is there any other way in which this can happen? Is there an alternative to the strategy we're supposed to adopt? Why is it this way? You know, these are these are questions, you want to ask as a researcher. So if you don't know how to observe, sometimes observing could also really mean just looking at your own at your work, at the data in front of you, at literature. And sorry, 1 minute, hold on, please. All right, okay, sorry, I'm back. So I want to ask, how are things happening around? And then the second description of who a researcher is a researcher is a relentless searcher of knowledge. You don't get tired. You don't imagine that if you have searched for a while and you can't find it, okay, that's fine. Everybody, let's pack up and go home. Let's just make do with what we have and go ahead. No, you don't get tired. And this is why. It means that the reason is because it means from the beginning, when you set out to search for knowledge, there is something driving you. There is something you are trying to find. And you sometimes, in the bid to find one thing, we may find many other things. We may find things around what we are trying to find. We may find a lot of things may come up, but then we do not lose focus of that particular thing we are trying to get, that particular knowledge, that particular phenomenon, that we're trying to understand. So we are focused and targeted towards getting that thing. So you don't get tired. And then after finding it, for instance, in the process of finding a thing, you discover that other things come up on the side, and then you say, "Oh, these are the limitations to what this my knowledge search." After finding what you are looking for, you must also be interested in finding other associated factors that end up, that could affect what we think we have found. These are so as a researcher, you must be relentless. You shouldn't get tired. It is not something that ends. And then a researcher is a systematic and objective investigator. So as a researcher, you must be systematic. Um, exactly what makes science is the systematic approach to issues. That is what makes it really scientific. So science, of course, you get knowledge, it's everywhere, but then arranging or approaching knowledge in a systematic way is one of the things that makes you different from somebody perhaps who is standing at a newspaper stand and analyzing what is happening in the country. So somebody could be there and just it's Obi is the problem. Oh, Tinubu is the problem. Everybody is just shouting and saying what they think. But what makes you different, like I said, is the systematic approach to issues. Your ability to look at it in ways kind of that tells more about that tells me about how that thing has come to be. One of the things, I watched some old movies at some point about old researchers, about old scientists, and one of the things I noticed was that they always have this pen and paper. They always have something, a board or something where they don't just talk about what is happening. They also talk about how it is happening. At so and so time this happens. People who work in the lab will understand a lot about what I'm saying. At so and so thing, at so and so time this happened. After I did this followed, and then that was the initial conceptualization of what science is. The ability to sit and do all these things and then be able to jot time, dates, frequency, all these things. But then over time, knowledge has shown that science is not limited to the lab, and so we come into the society. But then we don't just approach the society anyhow. We are systematic about it. And then an objective investigator. So this may be a bit of a challenge, because to be objective is not exactly an easy thing, and this is what I mean. Uh, all of us have biases. We have what interests us. We have what interests us. We have what moves us. So it may be difficult for us sometimes to remove our bias from what we are studying. For instance, if you are pro-life, if you are somebody who believes that abortion is a very, very, is a devilish thing, is evil, in fact, people who do abortion, they should hang them, and then somebody says they want to give you funding to do abortion research. If you are not careful, all you'll be finding out is how to prove that abortion is wrong. Whereas, if you are objective, you may be able to start understanding social phenomena, social factors, social issues that bring about the need, that compel people to say, oh, abortion is the next thing I want to do after doing this. If you are objective, you'll be able to say, oh, these are the factors influencing it. If so, being objective about an issue doesn't necessarily mean you approve of it or that you do not. It just shows that you want the facts to speak to you. So, as a researcher, let the facts speak to you. That is who a researcher is. The facts must speak to you. This is not to mean that when you are writing, especially when you're doing literature review, sometimes I know one of the things that happens is they say, oh, okay, this is what literature say. What do you say? And then many times people think, oh, it means I should talk about my own idea, here, my own position. And yes, that could be an approach to it. But again, sometimes speaking to it could mean, what is your reflection of what these facts are saying to you? It may not necessarily mean, what is your own bias that you want to impose on the facts that you are gathering in your research. What is the fact? What is your reflection of what the facts are saying to you? So then again, a researcher is somebody. So basically, a researcher is an objective investigator. So you are investigating. If the reason why they use investigation is because you are trying to find what you don't know. So if you feel you have known something about something, everything about something, then look for something else because you get bored. So and then again, a knowledge curator or creator. So there's the Bible, the Christian Bible says that there's nothing new under the sun. So and then I think some years back I was with uh I was with someone I respect a lot, and he was speaking, and then he said he wanted to do a series on emotional intelligence. So he sat down in his office. He was just thinking, and then um, about what to research into, and then he thought, there should be something about emotional intelligence. And then found something new. He was so excited that yes, he had found something new. That now he has found the holy grail that will, sell him to the world and all. And then while he started writing everything that was coming to his mind. So he picked emotion, he picked intelligence, and then, oh, okay, sensitivity. He started writing, and then he said, wow, something just said, okay, why not try Google? You see, I always say Google is a humbler. Once you type something inside Google, you will see the number of seconds it takes to find 1 million plus responses, entries, and then you'll be like, Hakilo, don't people even, who are the people always thinking about this thing before me? You know. So he just typed, and then voila, he discovered that from the 80s there have been very important works, on emotional intelligence. In fact, before then, and then it was like, oh, me that I thought I found something new. So in that case, when you discover that, wow, the new thing you think you are trying to find does not exist or appears to have been found, what do? You curate. So you pick that knowledge, you make use of it in such a way, in a new way. Remember our description of what research is, using existing knowledge in a new and creative way. A good example: somebody has researched into how to travel through how to travel using motorcycle, and then you thought, oh, motorcycle is a new thing, and then you discover somebody has already done it. So instead of saying, oh, that is it, let me move to another thing, why not research into why people travel using motorcycle? Just think around that thing, this thing called critical thinking. Why do people do this? Why do people do that? And all. So these are so in that way you are curating knowledge. But then, having said that, this is not to say that there are no new things that are being taught. For instance, as developments occur in information and communication technology, we start using new things. So, and as we are using new things, new knowledges start, emerging from research, from findings of people. So you can create a new knowledge. Sorry, please give me a minute, please. 1 minute. Okay, sorry, I'm back. Yeah. So when we research into new phenomenon, for instance, when the social media newly started, and people started looking into what is the social media, how is it, affecting lives, how is it operating, that kind of thing. we became so new knowledges were being created, especially in way about ways to look into it. In fact, one of the ways people create new knowledge is by designing new methodologies of inquiry into issues. So yeah. And then finally, in this slide, a researcher is a societal visionary. So how I came about this word was that I was trying to find a word that will capture someone who is concerned about societal development. So I was trying to find a word and I couldn't get. I know there's a word somewhere at the back of my head, but I couldn't pick it. So I just went to ChatGPT and typed, please get me a word or phrase for this. And then it brought societal visionary and I put it here. So if you may have a better word for it, in your own mind about how this works. So a societal visionary in this context is somebody who is concerned about development, who is concerned about what's happening around them, finding solutions to issues. That is who a researcher is. Because what is research if it does not solve the problem around you? What is research if it is not able to help your environment? Even for those who are locked up in the lab, their research is still expected to affect everyday life because that is really why research is important. All right, let me move to the next slide. Yeah, so what is a researcher's role in the society? Number one, to observe, to understand the environment. A researcher is expected to observe, to understand the environment. That is your role. Um, a good example, Nigeria did the general elections last year. Had general elections last year, and then we had this polarizing opinion publicly. So we call some the okay, not necessarily polarizing. So we have the obedient movement, the articulate movement, and then we have the bat, movement. And then as a researcher, you want to observe to understand. So after the election, people came up, oh, why is it that people voted this man? All of you voted him. Some put it down as, oh, they just rigged it, he didn't win. Some said, oh, a lot of things came up. As a researcher, you want to sit down and look at that incident, look at what happened, and start to observe what are the facts, what are the things we can find from what we see and what are these things saying? First, about the people. First, about why are the people also making these kind of decisions? Why is it that there seems to be a public opinion about somebody that is the solution? Why is that person considered a solution? What are factors influencing the decision to observe someone as as a kind of a messiah? And then, so you want to observe to understand what is happening in the environment. You want to observe. So you are observing, you are trying to understand why. Why are people behaving the way they do? Why do things happen the way they do? So you are an observer. That's your first role. If you do not observe, if you don't even know what's happening, if you are not a patient observer, if you just pick something, you can run with it and discover that what you are stressing yourself to find solutions to, the solution has already been found. Then a researcher's role is to find existing problems or inadequacies in life and nature. A good example, people, human beings, one of the characteristics of human beings is movement. And so we can move. We walk, we walk up and down with our legs. And then somebody looked at it and said, what if we could move faster? And then design that, oh, there should be some beasts of body that will be able to carry us. So they thought about the camel, they thought about the horse. And then when people were using the horse, people came up again and thought and said, okay, if you can carry one horse and run, and you can only carry maybe two people, why can't I join two horses together and add them to a cart? And then can carry and probably carry more people, even in more, it could even be more luxurious. And then people kept on thinking. So if you look at the evolution of the thought around movement, you are going to see that people keep finding problems and inadequacies in what is happening, and they are trying to advance it. The problem mostly with the Nigerian context is that attention is mostly focused on being poor, on money, on lack. So much so that with little attention is given to how the society itself works. Many times, focusing a lot on those immediate needs, of I want to eat, drink, and survive, focusing so much on that sometimes robs us of having an understanding of something called a bigger picture. So, and we'll get to that point. We'll talk more about that in future in other slides. But as a researcher, your role is to look into what is happening. So you are in the lab, and then you are using all these chemicals, mixing them, all this acid, trying to find mix different things, test how they operate, test what they solve, what they don't solve, the problems they create, and all. And then why not just you can sit in the lab and wonder, okay, so why do we always use this for this? Why don't we use why don't we have another equipment that could do this? You question, you are looking into how something is done, and then you're asking yourself, why can't there be another way to do it? Why can't there be an easier approach to this? Why can't there be? Because basically, it is the question of finding an easier approach to things, or even complex approach, a more complex approach to issues that led to most of the developments in science and technology. So as a researcher, you need to keep finding. And then if you are in a social researcher, for instance, or you are in language and people keep speaking, why do they speak the way they do? So is there a pattern in the evolution of language in particular communities? Okay, so how did it happen? What are the variations? What are the things that are happening? These are things that can interest you. And then as a researcher, you seek to solve problems or improve life and living. A research that is not solving any problem sometimes, is better off not being done. Don't just do it. It's not necessary. The reason why we do research is that we want to know more about the society. Sometimes the problem you are solving could be the problem of lack of knowledge about it. So you want to wonder, there's this joke we crack, around me, and it is sometimes when we look into people who explore the sea, who dive deep, and then try to see what is happening in the sea. And then you're like, who send them message? Why are they doing this? One of the things that we have found, one of the things that I have discovered eventually was that explorations to the sea into the sea have helped solve many problems, even for humans on the land. And most times we do not know, because our focus is not on that. We're wondering, why do I need to go into the sea? All I need to do is enter motor, kick my car, and go. But then we forget that many times oil exploration is done under the sea. So these are issues, so we must seek to solve problems or improve life and living. Look around you. What is the problem? What are you trying to solve? What are you trying to solve? Then three, finally, bring science into the community. If you are a researcher and there is no link between what you are doing or have done and the society, you are more or less, you just wasted time. To not waste time, you can go back to, people, I've seen people say, oh, I have so and so number of publications, I have so and so number of things, I've done so and so number of stuff. And then everything you have found has ended. It ended in the pages of publication, or sometimes not even in publication, maybe on the shelf in your department, or the shelf in the department, or in the or even at home. So, and then there is also this over reliance on government to be the one to take up what it is we have done. But so what if government will never use what we have researched into? What happens? So does it mean that cure that you have found or that understanding about human behavior that you have discovered in your research, it will end there. Does it mean that there will be no breach between what you have found and the society and the community? Then for what reason have you done the research? So as a researcher, our role is to bring science into the community. So researchers are like, I want to put privileged in quotes, privileged few who understand how things really operate, and they they strategically find solutions, or bring enlightenment into the community. Um, so let me move on because our time is gone. So why research? That's a summary. Rounding off now. To seek and share knowledge, and we've talked about that, to use knowledge for development, and finally for personal welfare. Because I've said all this, and then somebody is wondering, okay, I've not eaten. I'll be looking for a problem up and down. Yes, we've in this same short course, we've talked about grants writing. Sometimes some grants pay you. It's not every time you get grants that you get paid. Some grants will clearly state there that you should not use part of it for salary. So that you want it, it just adds to your credibility that people could trust you with money. You don't necessarily mean that because you have won it, you are buying your next house or your next car or marrying a new wife or husband. But then research is able to cater to your needs. Personally, I've seen research, meet my physical needs, especially welfare for me, my family, and all. And I've seen it also meet the needs of other people. So there are grants that you get, and then they tell you, oh, this so and so percentage is for the PI or is for the researcher. You can be part of some research projects, and then you have some money from it. But like I'm saying, if the focus is on finding money, your research will not go far. And that is the fact. It really won't go far. You can get popular, but you really will not go far if money is your focus. But then, if solving a problem is your focus, your research can take you far beyond where you imagine, and it will pay for far more than what you need. So if your research is focused on, creating knowledge, solving a problem, discovering new things, those physical needs will be met. In research, it's like this biblical saying that says, seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and every other thing shall be added. For us as researchers, seek ye first a problem and knowledge to solve, a problem to solve, and a knowledge to curate, and every other thing will be added. That is my own stuff for research. If you have something, if you have a solution, the world will listen. If you have a solution, your environment would listen. If you have a solution and you collaborate effectively, you will not be poor. If you have a solution to a problem, the world is full of problems. And if you ask people, what is the problem of Nigeria? What's the problem of Africa? What's the problem in the world? People can just sit down and talk to you for hours. But then, what is the solution? That is where problem starts from. And then that is where you come in as a researcher. Sometimes you want to help them understand what really the problem is, not necessarily the solution, because sometimes understanding the problem is part of finding solution. And in doing that, more often than not, if you do it well, you will find you will find resources to take care of yourself and family. It may not be fast sometimes, because if for researchers, there are times that it looks as if you have gone underground and nobody knows you. So you are just researching, you are reading, you are writing, and all. And then all of a sudden, you publish that one paper, or you speak at that conference, or you give a lecture, and then everybody start talking about it. And somebody saw your research and says, oh, I saw what you have done. I would like you to come and present it again to us. And somebody is inviting you to speak. And all of a sudden, it looks as if the world starts revolving around you, as if they just discovered you. And then somebody says, oh, we have a new kid around the block. And in your mind, you're like, I'm not new here. I've been here for 20 years. The truth of the matter is that eventually it pays if we live long enough, to enjoy it. So conclusion, which type of researcher do you want to be? I asked the question earlier at the beginning. I said, does research work in Nigeria? Yes, it does. Last year, we had under the leadership, under the supervision of one of our mentors, we had to work on a document for UNFPA and then for Nigerian Population Commission, and then things that we thought do not exist in the country. In fact, I would argue that we don't have policies for them or that they are not measured in any way. We discovered that these things are online. The country have policies for almost everything: development policy, strategic plan, national strategic plan, and then when we were searching, for some of the sections, maybe we saw it at first, they did not exist. And then Professor Kemi will say, they exist. I worked on one of these documents in 1990, like 1990 what? Like this is the Nigeria that we are in, you know. And then we found, so when we talk about research and its results, sometimes it may not be grand, because I think another challenge we have about how our research is supposed to shape society and life is that we expect that grand entrance, we expect that grand finding, we expect that grand something that everybody will shout, wow, he has found it. No, sometimes research is understanding that you can put water in nylon and sell it as pure water. Sometimes research is understanding that you can advise from ice water to pure water. You can advise from pure water to bottled water. Sometimes research is understanding that you can change the design of a bottled water into something that is easier to hold around the middle. Sometimes research is discovering that you can design a water bottle in a way that makes it easy for children to want to drink from it. Sometimes this research is discovering that, oh, instead of using your hands to always weed your environment, you can use insecticide and just, spray everywhere and then wait for it to dry out. Sometimes research is understanding that within the home, you don't have to, always go to the door to open, that you can install I will call it intercom now, that people press, the doorbell that people press, and then from your room you can pick and say, yes, who's that? Sometimes research could be something as small as understanding how to do your work easier in the kitchen, in the bedroom, in the sitting room, in your classroom, in your office, around your area, in your compound. Research could mean, you know, finding solution to little things. It doesn't necessarily have to be grand, because at the end of the day, it is these little things that end up becoming grand. In Nigeria, research has worked. We've seen people design different types of furniture, for instance. If you are sitting wherever you are and you look at the chair, understand that it's a product of research in a way, thinking outside the box. How did people know that they can do the legs the way they did it? It's research also. Some of these things, we use a lot of things that are imported, but then we use so many things that are locally made. And many times they are also products of research. If you work with non-governmental organizations, or if you are familiar with what happens in that space, most of the health policies that Nigeria adopts are from them, and they are products of research within the community. They are products of research. People come to ask women questions when they are pregnant, and then as they're asking you, oh, did you eat? Did you pee? How many times did you pee? Did you feel hot? Okay, when you use this thing, how did it make you feel? And then you thought you were just responding to normal health, normal hospital questions. But then those things, they gather, it becomes data, and then they use it to form policies of how pregnant women should be taken care of. When you go to the hospital and they tell you, oh, no, you cannot do it, this is how we must do it, it's a product of research. So I want to ask, which type of researcher do you want to be? Is it someone who seeks to find solutions, or someone who just wants to make money? And trust me, none of it is wrong. Thank you very much. Over to you, Toby.
Thank you very much, Mr. Oladimeji Ogunoye, for this very insightful lecture. Please, I would like us to please indicate with our electronic icons to clap or give certain reactions. And so we'll be taking questions. Please, if you have questions for Mr. Ogunoye, please let's put that in the chat box and he'll be reviewing it. I'm certain a lot of people have learned and we've seen a wide research in a different light, more practical light. And like I said before we started, it was going to be interactive. And I'm sure it was very interactive and we're able to speak a lot of things. So please let's leave our questions in the chat box. And also, we normally start by 8 and finish by 9. We initially requested for 5 minutes for those that will be joining, and also like to request for extra 5 minutes just in case. That will be 9:05, in case we have more questions or comments. So please, whatever comments we have, we could also use the raise hand button or icon rather, and you'll be asked to unmute and then speak. Thank you.
All right. So
Again,
there
if
are
you have
questions. You can use the raise hand icon. If not, we can also put it in the chat box. But then, as we wait for the questions, I think there could be announcements about the social media, the posts for the lectures on YouTube. So I don't know, Toby, do you want to take that now?
all right, sure. So our videos are up on our YouTube channel. The YouTube channel would be posted in the chat box for us to review or go back to old videos, and videos will keep coming up. You could also refer your friends, send the link, share it with your friends, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel. As we speak, this particular session is being live streamed on YouTube. So please do subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on all our social media platforms so that I don't miss out on information. We post information on grants, research progress, innovations. So please do follow us on our social media platforms also. All this, the chat link, the link and the YouTube channel would also be posted in chat box. Thank you very much.
Okay. Someone asked, can we get the PDF? If you mean the slides, well, not sure, but then you can just download it or you can watch it on YouTube. It will be there. To be on YouTube, so easily you can access it on YouTube.
All right, so we have feedbacks. Thank you for this insightful presentation from Immaculate Apple. We have thank you very much for the presentation from Adini. Also from Dr. Fumi, we have an informative lecture. Thank you. From Kendi Adelaja, thank you, sir, for the presentation. From Boma, thank you. All right, so we have a question from Immaculata. It says, who is a principal investigator, sir?
Oh, all right. Thank you. So a principal investigator is someone who is leading a research. So remember that we said earlier that researcher is an investigator and that if you're a researcher, you're actually investigating. So the principal investigator is the person leading it, the primary person who is leading the inquiry. So that's the principal investigator. Thank you.
Thanks, sir, for the response.
All right. Someone else is asking about the YouTube channel. So would
All
the
right,
link be
so if we
posted?
don't have further questions, we'll be dropping the links to the social media and YouTube page in the chat box for us to have access to. Yeah. Oh, all right. We have a question from Chima. Says, thank you so much, sir, for this presentation. How does one globalize a local discovery in terms of international publication? How does one globalize a local discovery in terms of international publications? Over to you.
All right. So if it's a local discovery, one of the things you want to do is you want to document. By documentation, I mean, first, if it's a novel, discovery, you want to patent if possible. You want to do all these things. You want to take care of that, of your intellectual property first, and then you disseminate locally. Disseminate locally. Let people who are around you know what you have discovered. Let them see how it operates. Let them know. And as you're doing that, you are also trying to publish in a you're also trying to publish. You are writing maybe the methods you used, the approaches you used to make the discovery. You are writing it and then submitting to a publication international. But then before you do that, one of the things that people also do is you look for conferences in the direction of what you want to do and you go to present. And this also goes to the question about making your voice heard as a new researcher. One of the ways you start getting known, first of all, is you read, interact with what has been done, think through, try to find new approaches to things, and then attend conferences, international conferences. For conferences that you may not be able to pay for, your flight, check um, if they have travel grants or travel support, if your institution has, or if you yourself have enough money to travel. If not, then just um, ask if they also have options for virtual participation. So if these things exist, make use of them, take advantage of them, and use them and travel, and present at conferences. Present at conferences, present your findings at conferences. But then one thing that you must do that helps is to have a mentor who guides you through all these processes. So usually our mentors have been to some of these conferences, and then they are the ones who will push us to say, oh, this is the next thing you should do. This is the next step you should take. Oh, consider submitting your paper to this. So consider, presenting at this conference. Sometimes your mentors take you to conferences that you consider too big or too large. For instance, I presented at IUSS, I presented a paper at IUSSP. It was funded anyways because there's no way I was going to be able to raise 350 euros to pay for conference registration. So it was through the help of a mentor who said, "Oh, what you're doing on social media is really ingenious. Let's do this. Let's present at this place, at this conference." So yes, you should attend conferences, and then many times some conferences end up saying we should bring if they find it worthy enough, they will ask you to write a full paper so that they can publish, and that answers it. So, say for qualitative research, most times it's difficult to follow the rigor of scientific research studies. How then do you follow through the research report? Qualitative research is one of the places you need science even more because you are dealing with a gamut of data that could be scattered or littered everywhere. So that is why there are qualitative analysis softwares that help you uh, arrange your findings, your what you are the things you are finding in a systematic way, and then in hierarchies, so that when you are writing these things, what you are finding becomes some sort of subheadings or guide to what you are writing. Then we had a session on qualitative research, so just watch the video on our YouTube channel, and then you may be able to find answers to that. I think the link to the YouTube channel has been posted to our pages, the social media pages have been posted in the chat box. So just follow through. If you still need help or anything, just reach any of our contacts that you have, or send an email to oaucentralofficeofresearch at gmail.com. So then must the PI be the one to conceptualize the idea in grant writing? It depends. So I joined a group to apply for a TED Fund grant some years back, and we didn't get it. But one of the reasons I didn't know why we didn't get it, because it was a very innovative plan. But then I eventually discovered that the reason we didn't get it was because our PI was somebody that was not considered to be an expert in that field. So for every other ones I've done is that we had to look for PIs that are experts, that are considered globally as experts, whose CV is strong. We sell ideas, we discuss the idea together. If the PI really knows their onions, definitely they will also help you shape your idea, in one way or the other to make it better. And so by the time you are presenting, you are not just presenting your own raw idea. They also have input in the way the idea has been shaped, and then you apply. So, and then you apply for grants. Usually PIs are supposed to be people who are, for some grants, they're supposed to be people who are experts, who are old, but then who are experts and experienced rather, not old. But then there are some grants that are mainly for people who are just starting, for young researchers who have not collected so much grants in the past, and also that doesn't require that. So that you may be able to apply for that directly, but the PI must know the idea of the research. Without knowing it, there's no way the PI will be able to properly investigate or lead the investigation. Thank you very much. I think we are already at 9:05. Um, okay, if the
Yes.
PI is not, and the one who conceptualized the idea is not allowed to work in the pace the project is supposed to go due to ethical work schedule, what should be done? I think a meeting should be held together with the PI or any other team member so that they can resolve internal issues. Most projects have their challenges, so I think that would be peculiar to that particular group, and then you can find ways to resolve it. It's good to come back to the drawing table when you're on a project at different times, so that you can find a way to get things done. Yeah. So if the PI is busy, you may want to delegate. You may want to say, okay, should we get someone else? You may want to say, okay, how can I help to lessen your workload so that we can have more time for this? And on like that. I think internal discussions help a lot in groups, in group projects. So thank you very much for having me. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. I'm handing over to Toby now to close up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ogunoye. I would like to say thank you to everybody. And to the last question that was asked, we had a session last week by Dr. Matthew Olashopo handled project management. I think we have it on our YouTube, so that would be a good place for you to look at or review. Yeah. Once again, I'd like to say a big thank you to the Executive Director of the Central Office of Research, Professor Movanike Upong, for giving us this platform. And I'd like to say a big thank you to everyone who has joined this call today. We'll see you same time next week by 8 a.m. to 9. Yeah, thank you. My name is Olatoblova and over. Thank you.